Hi again and welcome. This is Michigan's AutoTalk podcast, episode number 45. I am Phil Tower, along with host Al Schwinkendorf. We're giving Mr. Puick this episode off. We remind you every episode of Michigan's AutoTalk podcast is all about celebrating the automobile, everything automotive. We're also about helping and supporting you, the car and truck owners across our great state of Michigan, the birthplace of everything automotive. We are here on another edition of the AutoTalk podcast, fresh off of our AutoTalk podcast that we did from Michigan's International Auto Show, which seems like Al Schwinkendorf. It was a long time ago. It was just 2 weeks ago, right?
Yeah, 2 weeks.
The most obvious thing about that was there weren't a lot of cars there. Probably, right. What would you say, 30% fewer cars than usual?
A large portion of the main area. They had the track where Gilmore was driving around. The hall that they used to put the $1 million motorway in was just out in the main entrance hall. They were struggling to fill up the place.
Yeah, and in spite of that, I mean, it was not a bad experience. We talked to some good people. We talked to Judd Templin with Ford and learned a lot about the Ford products. We also talked with the folks from the Gilmore Car Museum, our buddy Jay Fowlis from Gilmore, and I think one of the most interesting conversations was talking with Craig Piersma, kind of the marketing PR guy for Gentex, which is a huge player in the automotive world, automotive parts world here in West Michigan. They're kind of a sleeping giant over, on the lakeshore there in Zeeland. I don't know what you know about the company, but they're really, I guess, more cutting edge than a lot of people realize, don't you think?
Oh, exactly. And when you look at all this, like, what is it, rear view cameras and stuff like that are mandatory on cars now, just like the tire pressure monitoring systems and the pedestrian avoidance and all these things that are coming down that, you go, wow, cool, look at this new technology. It didn't come from Ford or Chrysler or Mercedes or BMW. It came from companies like Gentex, and they're like cutting edge, and they sell to everybody.
They had some really interesting vehicles at the auto show. They had that urban destroyer assault vehicle. I don't know what it was. It was kind of like every man's camping. How in the world would you describe that thing out in the Grand Hall?
I think it's the best way to escape the zombie apocalypse, I guess. It had everything you could want. It's a part man cave, part off-road vehicle, part camper. But again, just highlighting the things that they do, and it's, to me, you always think this is manufacturer driven and stuff like that, and instead you got people like them that are going knocking on doors and go, look, we can help you with this because this is our technology and this is what we can do. And the new vehicles, the cameras, the 360-degree views, all the things that they do, the navigation systems, the radar-controlled cruise controls, all that kind of stuff is right up their alley, and they've, pioneered that and just keep building on it and building on it and building on it.
Yeah, that vehicle they had was pretty impressive. They have been a long-time sponsor of the auto show. We also learned that they've got... what was it, Al? 400 job openings as well. So if you're looking for a gig, you might want to check out Gentex. Some other things that...
Plus that whole thing they told us about their whole Spanish division.
Oh, yeah.
One whole separate facility for Spanish-speaking people that, you can go in and everything you do, all the paperwork, every memo, every, the employee handbook down to the signs on the restroom, everything's in Spanish. So if there's people who English is not a primary language and they need a job, that they're looking for you.
Yeah.
I thought that was incredible.
I did too. I thought it was very interesting. We're going to talk a little bit about price gouging in the world of buying a new car. I will tell you from firsthand experience, my wife has been looking kind of soft looking to replace her 13-year-old Lexus, which has got 160,000 miles on it. She's thinking, now is the time. There is almost nothing to look at. She wanted to look at a Toyota RAV4 or the Venza, which is almost impossible to get, and they got one in at Cool Toyota last week for her. And just, again, this is a snapshot of what's going on. They got it in, and the sales guy called, very nice, but he said, there's a recall on these Venzas now, so I can't even let you drive it. Some some issue with, a taillight and water and shorting out the electrical system and catching fire. And, that's the difficulty right now of trying to buy a new vehicle, especially. Every vehicle is really in demand right now, but that was just a Toyota RAV4 and the Venza, which apparently is pretty limited production. That was the Toyota that they made for several years. Very few people bought it, and they said, well, what the heck are we making this for? They stopped, and then they reintroduced it, I think, a year or two ago. It's basically the cheapest way to get a Lexus with a Toyota, name badge on it. It's a pretty loaded, high-end crossover vehicle, but if you're looking to buy one of those right now, you probably won't be able to get one, not only because of the scarcity, the recall in those vehicles. So that's the reality out there.
Every customer I've got that has one of those loves them too. They buy another one in a heartbeat. I was speaking with my dealer this morning, and they actually had the manufacturer brought the vehicles that they had down at the auto show, and they were shipped to the dealership. They, cleaned them up, got them all shiny clean, and got them downtown and got them installed there. And then they were able to purchase them because it was cheaper to sell them off than to ship them on off to Chicago or wherever the next show is. And he said, in days gone by, you get those cars at a discount just because of the handling, and here and there, and a million people have sat in them and everything else. And it's like, we got them, but we paid full sticker for them. Yeah. And that's just the way it's going right now.
Yeah, and that was the case with a lot of those cars we saw at the auto show. A lot of those were customer cars, as we were told, and they were pretty much there at the mercy of the customer and the dealer, and they had worked out a deal. Hopefully they got a little bit of a price break on that. Hey, we're going to take your car and we're going to demo it all weekend, for 3 or 4 days at the auto show. Hopefully there was some kind of exchange of goods or something of value there. So, bottom line is that kind of stuff.
Well, there's been a couple stories. Yeah, there's been a couple stories out the last few weeks, both Ford and General Motors, of getting out the handbook and the contracts for the dealers, and reminding them about price gouging, because the Ford Lightning, which they have way more pre-orders than they can possibly fill in the next 12 months, and also the new Corvette, the Z06.
Yes.
And both manufacturers just came out and said, look, if we catch you, gouging people on these things, you're violating this, and this in your contract, and there's going to be hell to pay. So they're trying to prevent it, but those things are extreme. That's like the Dodge Vipers were in the Ford GTs, where whatever, pick a number, it's a $90,000 car and they're selling it for $210 because they can get it. The manufacturers aren't going to put up with that, and there's I feel a lot of tension right now between the dealers and the manufacturers, where they used to work together and they needed each other. The dealers are upset because they don't have product to sell, and the manufacturers are doing everything that they can, and they're just clamping down on them. So you read an article about that thing only on a lower basis, right?
Yeah, and I'm looking at this right now, Al. This is from Motor Trend, and this is a 1 or 2 day old article. This is from Edmunds.com. They collect, the figures people are paying for cars. And this is as of January 2022. Oh, yeah. Okay. So the worst offenders are Cadillac, followed by Land Rover and Kia. And on average, for Cadillac customers, according to Edmunds Automotive, Cadillac buyers spent more than $4,000 over MSRP. That's manufacturer standard suggested retail price. On average. That severe markup, Edmunds is saying, is nearly $2,000 higher than the next worst offender, which is Land Rover. I have no idea why anybody would overpay for a Land Rover or pay for one in the first place. They're very overpriced and very unreliable vehicles. Just saying. That is compared to the average actual transaction price, coming to over $2,500 over MSRP. For last month alone. That's not unexpected, but Edmunds says the big surprise was who came in third. Kia's, in high demand, And Kia, every dealer is taking advantage of that with an average transaction price, Edmund says, $2,300 over the sticker for a dang Kia.
That's tough to bite when you're talking a $26,000 car, that's 10%.
That's 10% easily. And Lincoln made the list as well, but it's much smaller. Volvo was almost 900 over MSRP. Ram at about 500 over. I guess it's, people are paying what they're going to pay. Porsche was fourth on the list, 1,700 over MSRP. Acura, 1,700. Genesis, well, I guess if you're going to pay for a Genesis, what's another $1,600, right, Al? Who cares at that point?
That's true.
Hyundai 15 over and 1,300 over was Audi, which is about the top 10 most priced gouge vehicles for the month of January, according to Edmunds Automotive, which, again, as my wife decided after the experience last week with the Venza that we were told we could drive, that she couldn't drive because of the recall, she just said, you know what? I think I'm going to wait a little while so I don't get gouged on this. And that's exactly what she said even before I saw this article. Toyota's not on the list, but Toyota's problem is they just don't have inventory right now.
And there's stories every week about, I think some of this is happening because people look at the value of the car that they currently own. And I had a friend call me up and he had a few questions. He was driving to Chicago to pick up a 2019 Toyota 4Runner, either 60,000 miles on it or something like that. Is paying $45,000 for it.
Oh.
And I'm like, serious? And he's like, I've searched the world over, this is a fair deal for what it is. It's what they're going for and everything else. But, there's something on the news every day where somebody buys a 2-year-old Honda for $3,000 more than what the original owner paid for it. It's insane.
Yeah. And, I'm just going to...
I don't know where this all stops.
I'm going to throw a softball your way, which is if somebody's going to pay a lot of money for a used vehicle, which is reality now, they really ought to bring it into Verberg's, some place to have it looked at by somebody they can trust, because you might be buying another $3,000 to $5,000 worth of repairs on the used vehicle you already overpaid for, and I bet you've probably already seen that happen a few times in the last 6 months or so.
We do, and the rumor has it the auto auctions are really busy. If you get down by Moline on 131, you see that lot there is just as full as it was 3 years ago. And, sometimes those cars are out there. Somebody gave them up for a reason. It's not because they wanted to pay 20% more than they had to for another new one. It was, we got to get rid of this thing. And so you do have to be careful. And the general attitude is, well, I got to buy this one because if not, the next guy will. And then I've already got 4 months invested in trying to find what I want. And I get that, but still, at the end of the day, when you're paying premium price, making sure you're getting what you paid for, I think would be top on the list.
Very good point. Very accurate point. We are going to put the wraps on this episode 45 of Michigan's Auto Talk podcast. We want to remind you that every episode of Michigan Auto Talk podcast can be found wherever you get your favorite podcasts, including we are on Spotify. We're on Apple Podcasts. We're also on Amazon. You can tell Alexa to play Michigan's Auto Talk podcast. Leave some feedback. Let us know what you think of an episode. And if there's something you would like to hear on a future episode, you can drop us a note on our Facebook page, facebook.com/Michigan's Auto Talk podcast. Until next time, I'm producer Phil Tower.
I'm Al Schwinkendorf.
Thanks for listening.